Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible, usually because this is a new set review, and let's have a look at, is this set any good? Can you be playing some of these decks on a budget? Will you be wanting to buy this set at all, or is it better to just go for the single cards in here? And I will have a very big opinion on this one, but let's look first of what's the ratio to new cards towards the old cards, and does that affect you buying this pack a little bit? And you can already see I've turned it into that mode. We have two cards in here, the ultra rare slot that already existed beforehand, some of the Labyrinth stuff, and one of the cards that is Dark World support, the only ultra rare Dark World that existed beforehand. Now that has drastically changed, but it is what it is. And then we have some super rares here, we have some magic key stuff in here, we have some of the generator cards in here, we have trap tricks cards in here, and we have Evil Eye, funny enough, because there is new Evil Eye support in here as well. But all in all, we have plenty of super rares in this pack. I feel like this is a jam-packed pack full of interesting new cards, and we will look at all of them. We are starting with the ultra rares, obviously, Trap Tricks, Atypus, the Link 3, and this card is very important for Trap Tricks. This card does a lot. It's not super easy to go into, but there are certain combos, and it used to be a lot harder to do this, but nowadays not that difficult, and the effect is overall very good for the deck, and you only need one of them. So theoretically we will look into it further what we can do with Trap Tricks here, but you only need one of this. So far no need to open this pack just to pull one of that, but I know there's more Trap Trick support in here. We have the Leviathan, Generator, Boss of Shadows. Also a card that you probably want to be playing at 2 or 3, sadly. I will be making a budget version for Generator, of course, because this is one of my favorite decks, and it's one of my favorite budget decks, so glad new support comes out. And I've already seen the rest of it is fairly affordable, so this is the only one. And before, you didn't really have to run any ultra rares. Now I think you have to be doing like 3 or 2, like technically either 2 or 4, because this one needs the other one to really work out. So you either run 2 ultra rares or you run 4 ultra rares, and then you should be fine with that one. We have Trap Tricks, Ping Yu Q Kula, a card that is usually fine at 1. You could potentially get away with not running at all, but it is quite nice because it can add a Trap Trick monster from deck to your hand, and there is a Trap Trick monster you do want to add. And also you have the whole, if a monster you owned by your opponent is sent to the graveyard or banished by a card effect, then you can attach one of those monsters to this card as material. So yes, you can get them out of the air basically, and yeah, that's all it does, but it can be very nice. Plus it has the nice effect, the activated effects of other monsters of the same type as this card's material, so this is where this comes into play. So this can be unaffected by other stuff. Not that it does that much beside that, but it can against certain decks, although 2500, but you get the attack boost by the Link monster, and if you can establish that, that can be very devastating because your opponent will have a hard time getting rid of it then. Other than that, you could try out the deck without this one. We have Grapha, Dragon Overlord of a Dark World. I think you want to be running 1 or 2 of this one. It's not too hard to go into, but you do need like the fusion card if I'm not mistaken. The effect is fairly decent. And yeah, but you do need Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World, or one of the cards that's supplemented, technically possible. But yeah, there's definitely a deck in here somewhere. I already don't want to go too much into the whole Dark World stuff because I have had a look, and you will see during this video that this deck will be incredibly expensive. I wanted to make a budget version of it, but having seen what the ratios are, I don't think it will be possible. We shall find out. I might get back to you within the next few days, but this is definitely one of the, well, more difficult ones to turn into a budget deck. There's always that one in the packs that shouldn't really work out that well, and usually it's the one that is the best one gameplay wise, but Trap Trick is also fairly decent, so not that. We have the old Grapha, obviously that's an ultra rare, and you do need to run at least 2 of this annoyingly, so yeah, I don't think you can cut all that much. Then we have lovely Labyrinth of the Silver Castle, the one that already existed. One is fine, I think, especially with the new one coming out. I don't think this one is too important, but I'm not like the craziest Labyrinth player, so I'm not 100% sure, but I thought one of them was fine because you kind of brick of them in your hand, so it's not that good. We have Lady Labyrinth of the Silver Castle. Also, ratio-wise, could be potentially difficult. I don't know. Maybe you run it at 2. Maybe you do actually run it at 3. It's a bit difficult with the 1, but you can summon them out with the Labyrinth cards, and you can also special summon this card from your hand. So there's that. So it's not as much of a brick. So potentially this card, you want to pick up a few of that one. I like it. It's a very good effect, and it pushes Labyrinth a lot higher than they used to be, and it was already like a deck that was fairly playable. So this should make quite the difference. We have the other Rainbow, also an ultra rare, annoyingly, and it's also a card that you do want to be running at multiple. So yeah, that's that. It searches annoying stuff, and it can be very, very helpful. We have Beergrum, Shelled Emperor of the Forest Crown, a card that is mainly insect plant support. Ooh, who would have thought that this is in a trap trick pack? You can use it, but I don't think it's one of those things that you have to. You can probably make like a gimmicky deck putting this in here, but I don't think this is a must include in any shape or form. So more gimmick than anything. We have Sneaky Sea in here, sadly as an ultra rare, and it's kind of like fits into the whole sea theme. When your opponent special summons monsters, then you can special summon this card from your hand in face down defense position. If you do during the end phase of this turn, change it to face up defense position, and only use this effect once per turn. If this card is flipped face up during the end phase, destroy all special summon monsters on the field. So you put your opponent a bit of on a clock if they are going first. This card can be decent if they don't manage to produce a negate. So I don't think this one will be necessarily like a very good hand trap. It can be devastating against certain decks, and in certain metas it might be a shout that you could go for, but most decks that go into lots of special summon monsters will have a monster negate for that one, so shouldn't be too good, I guess. We shall see. We have an Evil Eye card in here, very, very interesting. They did get new support at one point. Annoyingly, this is an ultra rare because I wanted to do an Evil Eye deck, but the deck is already kind of expensive, and that doesn't make it any better. And since this card is a very good searcher, you kind of do want to max out on it, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, problematic here. I don't feel like this should have been an ultra rare. Super rare would have been absolutely fine, but in the end, it is what it is. We have then Trap Tantalizing Tune, a card that it has trap trick art, a card that does trap trick stuff, but is fairly generic theoretically. If you know, for some insect plant decks that are, I don't know, it works for lots of different decks because you just have to discard like a normal trap and draw 2 cards. Then you can banish it and target one of your banished level 4 insect or plant monsters or normal traps and place it on the bottom of the deck. So there is that one as well, so you can recycle certain things. It's a nice card, but I don't think you have to be playing it at all in trap tricks. Like, you will get a buy without it. It can be decent in certain scenarios, but I don't think like you need it, especially if you want to be playing on a budget. So I will not be including this because it's an ultra rare. Who would have thought? We have Big Welcome Labyrinth, of course, also an ultra rare. Who would have thought? It's kind of annoying that they went away from the whole boss monsters are ultra rares, and everything else kind of a super rare if it searches, if it does stuff, because nowadays everything seems to be an ultra rare, and I'm a bit annoyed about this because obviously it makes it harder to play budget decks, or it will raise the ceiling of how many ultra rares I will be putting into my budget decks, and that's a bit annoying. But obviously this is a very, very, very competent card that you do want to be picking up on. We have Muckraker from the Underworld. We add the super rares now, and I think this card is being played in quite a few decks. This card isn't a bad card whatsoever. It interacts with certain fiend stuff, and you can do quite a bit with that one. I think it's decent for Dark World as well, but I'm not 100% sure because you discard things, then you can special summon stuff, and yes, you lock yourself into fiend monsters, but there's that. So technically a card you might want to be picking up, or isn't bad if you pick it up. So we have that option. We have the one Magic-y card in here that's new, Magic-y Deity Ash Tartu, a card that is a rank 8, and I understand why it's a rank 8, because you do have the potential to go into certain level 8s, and I like this card for some reason. That is a super rare again. Interesting. I might update my Magic-y deck because I wanted to do that anyway. It's a bit of a weird effect. I'm not even 100% sure if you really need that one. It has an effect during opponent's turn, so it can do stuff. It can banish things, so it is another interaction during opponent's turn, but it's not that easy to go into, so I will have a look at that one later on. We have the Baromet, the Sacred Sheep Shrub. I think this card is very decent in trap trick. Sadly, obviously also a super rare. I feel like for the fact that it's fairly generic, but it does stuff for like plant things or for like normal trap card decks, I would have been happy if it wasn't a super, if it was like a rare card, because we do lack good normal or rare XZs, especially level 4s or any. So I felt like I hoped this card wouldn't be a super rare, but obviously it was gonna be. There was no doubt about that, sadly. Then we have Freki, the Runic Fangs, a card that might bring Runics back. I don't know. It is a card that does stuff. It helps you doing the whole banish playstyle, and neither player takes any battle damage from attacks involving this card, so that can be nice. And if this card's on the field, drop a battle card effect, you can target one runic quick play spell in your graveyard, add it to your hand. This card can be good. I don't know, is it played much? I've kind of lost track of the whole runic thing, but it's definitely a card you can add to your runic decks, more like the pure versions I would assume, but in the end it still does stuff. And it's a level 5 monster, so that can be helpful for certain other decks as well. We have Make Mortar, a card that used to be played at 1 or 2 in the Magic Key decks, and I'm pretty sure it will still be done. It's decent removal, it's okay. We have Lopter, the card that searches mainly Mardell, and then that searches your generator stuff, so there's that. A very good normal summon. If you want to be playing generator, this is a good card to be picking up, but that should also be in the generator pack, so it doesn't really make sense to buy this pack for just the generator stuff. Usually we have Trap Tricks, Vesiculo. I don't know if this card is even played, not more than at 1 if I'm not mistaken. It's decent because you can special summon it from your hand, but you have to send one set trap you control to the graveyard, so you kind of lose out on resources. And yeah, it's okay. You can use the second effect as well, but I don't know if that is still one of the better ones, because I think there might be more interesting ones than this one. We are back at the Dark World. Genta, this card, very, very good. Could run it at 2 or 3, and it's a super rare, so yes, we will be reaching deep into our pocket to be playing a Dark World. Sadly, it is like that. It's not a bad card at all, but you do need it, annoyingly. Then we have Trap Tricks, Pudaika, whatever. This card, very, very strong. I think this is usually like a 3 include, so you kind of want to do it. You can try it with 2, but I would say this card you have to kind of max out on. Annoyingly, it is like that, and annoyingly, of course, it was a super rare, but nothing that I didn't calculate for, so we will find a way to make Trap Tricks work regardless. Then we have the Evil Eye in here, doesn't really matter that much. One Labyrinth in here, which usually is fine at not too high of a number. You can make it work in the end at least. And we have Dark World Archives. Of course, this card is also a super rare. I think you get away with it running at 1 or 2. Don't need that much more, but of course it is a super rare as well. Then we have Trap Trip Garden. I think a card that you can include at 1. Annoyingly, it's also super rare. I really thought this was going to be a normal or rare card. It wasn't. Helps you going into your Link 3, and the first time each insect or plant monster you control will be destroyed by battle. Each turn is not destroyed, can help you, especially since you have a very grindy deck, and you can banish monster you control to special summon one Trap Trick monster from your hand or graveyard. So this really helps you with filling your board with monsters. So there is that one as well. I think it's a good pickup at 1, but you don't need it at any more than that. Then we have Dark World Punishment, another new card, one that is fairly decent, especially if you want to be played a deck that includes Dark World, but doesn't so much go into the extra deck, so this card can be quite helpful with it. Sadly, also super rare. I really thought this wasn't going to be one, but did I really think we're going to get away with this? Obviously not. We have Intimidating or Summon Knight in here. We have to target 3 monsters in your graveyard. You choose one of the 3, then your opponent chooses one of the following effects, and you apply that effect. Special summon the chosen monster, special summon as many of the other monsters as possible. Interesting one, but first of all, don't understand why it's a super rare. This is like exactly the kind of gimmicky card that you would get away with having as normal or rare, so some people might be trying it out in cheaper decks, but with the fact of being a super rare, this just makes it like awful. Like, I don't think I'd be running this at all, because you need 3 monsters in your graveyard, and then you give your opponent a choice to do certain things with it. Don't really think this in any shape or form is a card that should be seeing any play. We have Terrifying Trap Hole Nightmare, a card that's somewhat important for the deck. It is new, so you might as well run it if you have it. If your opponent has a special summoned monster this turn, this turn, so it's not just reactive. You can keep that in comparison to most of the other trap holes. That's what makes it fairly decent. You can target one monster your opponent controls, so 2000 or more attack destroyed. Then if you have a whole normal trap in your graveyard, you can banish one monster from your opponent's graveyard. So in all, a very decent trap hole. We have this card, and this is the one that actually matters a lot more. Trap Trick Holusha, Holuti, you know what I'm talking about. You can activate this card at the turn it was set by discarding one normal trap. You can special summon this card in defense position as a normal monster. and this card is not treated as a trap, then you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one trap trick monster in your graveyard and special summon it. This card really helps you with going into your Link plays and going into your Xyz plays. It kind of is better than the whole Phantom Knights one, so now you have a card that actually works with Trap Trick, so there is that one. And now we're back to the rare cards. Let's have a look at what is a new rare card. We have the Guard Mantises, the Praying Mantises. We have lots of Dark World stuff in here. We have Parle Hermit of Dark World, but I don't think this card is necessarily that great. We have some Dragon stuff in here as well. We have the Salamander, the Catalyzer card that's actually fairly decent in potentially cheaper Dark World decks, because you can reveal this card one fiend monster in your hand, special summon one of them, discard the other. So that is very, very neat for some of the Dark World decks. Then we have some insect stuff in here. Shout outs to the old insect, it looks a bit like that one. Then we have Evil Eye stuff in here, new Evil Eye stuff that you can be playing. We have another Trap Trick card that is fairly decent in the Trap Trick deck. We get more of spider stuff, interesting as well, if you want to be playing them. Then we have the cards that I think is banishes stuff from the graveyard. You can discard things, can be quite a good disruption if you play Dark World. We have Ascension, I think that's the fusion spell if I'm not mistaken. And luckily these are at least at low rarity. Then we have the Summel Archfiends. This turn it could be an interesting card. Neither player can special summon a monster of the same card types they already control, so that's a decent floodgatey card against certain decks and in certain metas, for the fact that it's rare. If you do not control two or more of the same card types, all Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Link monster you currently control gain 5 for attack. This is an extra effect, but that can help you with certain stall decks, being a rare. A card to look out for at least, it's not completely terrible. Soul Scissors is also an interesting card, I think. There's certain decks where you can use this, but yeah, wouldn't put too much thought into that one. We have one of the cards I definitely want to be mentioning, of course, and they made it a normal card. Very interesting, because this card is very, very strong. Is Vala, the new generator boss. So very, very interesting, because you can do more of the level 9 combos with it than the rank 9 stuff, and it can also help you get stuff out of your hand. So this card, very, very good inclusion in here. And then we enter on Giant Ball Game, a card that supports some insect stuff again. I don't know how good it is, but it is definitely gimmicky. So let's talk about this pack. Should you buy this pack? And I have to say, if you be wanting to be playing Dark World, probably, because there's not that much other Dark World stuff. I think one of the snow is missing in here in this pack, so you need to craft that one. But other than that, most of the good Dark World stuff is in here, and most of the good Dark World stuff is the new Dark World stuff anyway, because they weren't that expensive beforehand. So if you want to be playing Dark Worlds, this is the one thing where I'd say you kind of need to invest in this pack. There's no way around it, because there's so much stuff that you need from this one, and all of them come at very high rarity, so crafting them will cost you a lot, and that's a bit annoying. If you want to be upgrading your Labyrinth deck, you could consider buying it. The pack, it's not super necessary. If you have enough ultra rare crafting material, you can get around it, so I wouldn't say buy it just for the Labyrinth. Maybe save up on some stuff and invest into something that comes later on. But with buying the pack, you also get starters for lots of different decks. You can see this pack is full of cards for different decks. For example, the generator stuff, if you manage to get certain ones of this, if you get like 1 or 2 or 3 Lopters and 1 or 2 of the boss monster in here, then it's not that far away from like a fully competent generator deck in the first place, so you can be doing it with that one. If you want to trap tricks, obviously, I think you can get away with not buying this pack if you want to be playing trap tricks, but you probably should. If you don't already have any trap trick cards, it will put you in a bit of an awkward situation, because you do need certain trap trick cards from the original pack, because obviously none of the Link monsters are in here of the older ones, and I think the Link one at least is very, very important. The good Xyz monsters aren't in here, so you will need that as well, and Vermilio isn't in here, so there's that, and Gravedigger's Trapple is also not in here, so that's a card that you would want to at least play at 1. So difficult 1, because you would need to open 2 packs. I would say invest in one of them, and then craft the other ones is probably what I would suggest, because opening both of them will be a bit difficult. But yeah, definitely a suggestion if you need Dark World, if you want Dark World, you can't get around it. With everything else, you could potentially, but it will cost you some material. But the pack isn't terrible. It gives you starters to lots of different decks, and most of them are at least decent. I don't think they're meta warping or anything, but lots of them, especially in the best of 1 format, are fairly playable, and you will be climbing up the ladder eventually with most of the stuff. Not going to say anything for things like Evil Eye here, but the trap tricks are very decent, and even the generators aren't awful, and the Labyrinth are nice. Dark World is nice but will cost you lots of money, and then you have certain additions to other decks that aren't that expensive, like Magic Keys, for example. There's also that. So wouldn't rate this as the best pack of all time because it's scattered many different archetypes in here, but it's also not a terrible deck. It will be result in some playable decks at least. So yeah, you'll have to make that decision yourself in the end, but it has some good cards in here, but it could potentially be a bit better with certain other inclusions that they should put in here, especially like, for example, Link 1 trap trick I would have liked to see in here, but it is what it is, or Murmillo at least, and not the other old one that is in here. It is what it is. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, but most importantly, I hope you have a good day, and I hope you have a nice time with the new cards.